Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of ROM hacking. And now for something completely different, we're going to be looking at a Game Boy game. Let me just remove those breakpoints and start this thing going. So this is a great emulator called Emulicious with a really nice debugger. So this game is called, it's not an official release. It's inside, so I guess let's do some history here. HD2, give me 1 second. I'm going to open a ROM. Tetris Attack. Tetris Attack. Come on. God, it would be easier. Okay, let me just do it like this. Emu GB Tetris Attack. So this Tetris Attack version came out first in like 1995. Alongside, maybe 96, alongside the Super Nintendo release, and it's not that good. I mean, it's okay for what it is, but it's just not very fun. Like the timing wrong. It's just like, let's see, it's half baked compared to other versions. So this never got released. I think what happened is, so this is developed by Intelligent Systems, and they continued working on Tetris Attack for Game Boy, and they got it really good, and then they got it to the point where it was like really fun to play, and let's do a new version for Game Boy Color. And then Nintendo, for whatever reason, for commercial purposes, decided to slap the Pokemon license onto it, which turned into this. So this has really nice gameplay, but for me personally, I don't need, like, the color's pretty cool. I don't need all the Pokemon stuff. It takes a long time to get into the game. I'm happy playing a simpler version. So this was hidden or like left inside. You can read about it on the cutting room floor. This was left inside, and it's basically an updated version of that original, Game Boy Panel de Pon. So this one's really nice. So I like playing this. So here's the thing. If we go back and look at file sizes. So first we'll look at Tetris Attack. This is a 512 kilobyte ROM. And then if we look at Pokemon Puzzle Challenge, it's a 2 megabyte ROM. But this is inside of Pokemon Puzzle Challenge, that 2 megabyte game. So here's the interesting thing. When we use Emulicious, there's a feature called coverage. And this is basically like logging while you play the game which banks and which addresses of the ROM are being accessed. So we can see it goes all the way down to 7F. So 7F times each bank is 16K, but we want 7F times the 16K. So it's 128 times 16 is 2 megs. So that's the 2 megabyte file. But if we look, so the way that the Emulicious colors is, if it's red, it means it's being accessed a lot. Yellow, orange is like more, it scales, and then green is like one time, and black is it hasn't been accessed. So look at this access file for this Panel de Pon inside Pokemon Puzzle Challenge. It's only maybe 25% of the entire thing is being accessed. So like if we look, this is the last bank, 7F, no access. So the last bank that's being accessed, it looks like, is bank hex 66. So that's bank 102. So the thing is, with this coverage, you have to be a little bit careful because, for example, in a game like, let's say, Tetris, where after you get a certain score, it shows you a high score animation. That's accessing the ROM that you wouldn't see unless you met that condition of having a high score. So in this Panel de Pon, like, tiny little thing, I can be fairly certain that I'm accessing the entirety of what I need to access, because the whole thing it's like a debug. It's not a full game. It's just this screen and nothing else. So, like for example, so what I'm trying to do, what my goal is, and what I've partially done, I'll show you, is to change this so that instead of taking up full 2 megabytes, I am compressing it or moving things and then removing, because this data at the end is just filler. Like if we open a hex editor and then look at the ROM, no, I don't want that. Home, HD2, emu, GB, Pokemon, puzzle, Pokemon. Let's look at the end of the ROM. It's all FFFFF. So it's FFF for a long time for significant portion. These are all empty banks at the end. This FF is 255. It's like blank. So this corresponds to this. However, there is valid data. This might be the last bank. This might be Pokemon Puzzle Challenge data. This might be a song or graphics or whatever that are never accessed here. So even if it's not FF, we can still clear it away. So now I'm going to show you the more updated version that I have, and we'll look at the coverage. Did it overwrite my coverage? Let's see. Stop recording, reset. Yeah, I think it overwrote it. But so if we look at, I think I've got it already open. I'm now down to 816 kilobytes for my current Panel de Pon, cut up. So now you can see it goes to the very end, because this is bank 30. It goes up until bank 32. I think eMalicious is having. So if we do hex 32 times 16,000, that's 800K. So that is this. Oh, plus bank 0. So it should be hex 33 times 16,000. So that's 816 right there. So like I've gotten a lot moved over, and now I'm at the point where moving these 3 banks, it's a little this is all tile data, so I'm going to show you something neat in a second. This is tile data, at least in bank 32 it's tile data. So like I started moving bank 23 and 24 over, because once I get these moved in here, the highest bank is going to be 21. So let's do 22 times 16,000. I'm still not, my goal is to get it to 256, but prior to that I want to get it to 512. But to get it to 512, I guess I need 512,000 divided by 16,000. I need only 20 banks, which, let's see, what's this? This is 1A. It's somewhere like this stuff needs to get moved. Let's see, how many banks is this? So you see this is the bank. So just so I don't know if you know, yeah, eMalicious. See, this emulator, as great as it is, it's made in Java, and that leads to funkiness. So I've always hacked on 68,000 CPU, which is like Mega Drive, CPS1, CPS2, and I've hacked on Hitachi Super H2 and Super H4, which is CPS3, Dreamcast, Naomi, Psycho SH2. Those systems don't use banks. You can address all of the ROM all of the time. NES, Game Boy, Super Nintendo use banking. So like for example, in the Game Boy you can only access the first 16K ROM always, that's bank 0, and then one other bank. So it switches between them. So when I want to move one of these banks, what I have to do is find the access point where it switches which bank it should be at. And sometimes it's really easy. Like let's look, load a 32. So this may or may not be what it might not be switching the bank, so I can't just willy-nilly change it. But I'm just showing you an example. It'll be like load A with value hex 32, and then it'll use the DE register, which it seems like usually, I'm learning all this, it's usually, this DE register is usually for changing the bank, and it's like super easy, simple. Like some of these I've changed. I want to find a good example. But then another time it's way more complicated, and for example, um, it'll be from a data table. So this data table I've modified. So here's the original entry, and then you can see I changed. What did I here? I changed whatever was in bank 24 is now in bank 0B. So let's see, ROM 0B bank 0 bank 0B B. So this is ROM. It was in ROM 24, and it's like accessed one time. It might not even be necessary. So later on, I might be able to integrate this into a different bank. So it's like order of difficulty is it just directly loads it. Like this would be. Then the next set is like data table, and then the most complicated and difficult is when it increments. And I think what I'm working with here is this is bank 30, and then bank 31. And then bank 32. I'm not 100% certain, but I think it is incrementing. So there's some value somewhere that it loads bank 30, and then we're done with 30, increment the RAM, the value in RAM from 30 to 31, and load from there. So basically it seems like, based on my preliminary research, I have to move all three of these at the same time, and it's going to be pretty complicated. I mean, I'm going to get it done. I really want to get it to at least 512K, because you might say, like, this is totally pointless, and it is. And I mean, I'm learning, but also the Raspberry Pi Pico, I want to make a handheld device, and the Raspberry Pi Pico only has 2 megabytes of internal storage, and I don't want to have to rely on an external chip. So if this one game is 2 megabytes, then I can't even fit the binary for the emulator, so that's not going to work. So I'm just looking at the file sizes of all these different games and trying to decide what games I want to fit on that 2 megabytes, plus I need room for the binary. So, you know, if I can get this down to 256, and then I can kill, like, obviously I can't have all of these, but, oh, and then I'll show you something else that's cool. So my friend Sono is writing an emulator, a Game Boy emulator, and it's for Windows and Raspberry Pi Pico. And so he made it so it simulates the 1-bit color. I want to use the same type of screen technology as in the Playdate, but not that 2.7-inch 400 by 200 screen. I'm going to use a 1.3-inch screen. The resolution is 168 by 140, which is perfect for Game Boy. I mean, this is not for me to play. This is for me to like learn how to make devices, design PCBs. But anyway, this is how it'll look with 1-bit color with this style of dithering or whatever. So this looks cool. This is playable. It's a little bit washed out. You can see my note here, a bit washed out, but playable, but totally, you know, acceptable. So, you know, I basically got to keep. It's like a grind. It's the same as all other ROM hacking. It's a grind. You have to be persistent. But by the way, this emulator it just runs at 100% speed all the time. Like if we do psaux grep Sono top P1483804, CPU is 100% of one core, because this build, at least the Pico, it's meant to run on a Raspberry Pi Pico, where you're going to be wanting to use 100% of one core. One core is going to be like 100 megahertz or 200 megahertz, whatever. But the resource of physical RAM is 37K. I mean, this guy is good at coding. This is hype for me. So anyway, real quick, I can show you another game. So there's also another type of like dithering or graphic style. To me, it depends. Like some games work better with different ones, but I think just generally the first type style I showed works better. So let's see, test type 2. Uh, Soldam. So here's another game that this works pretty well. I mean, there's 3 colors in Soldam, so I'm not totally sure. I'm 99% sure the other color will work nicely. Um, so this is totally playable. Happy with this. We can look at it real quick in the Type 1 just so you can see the difference. See how it's like it's using basically dithering. And this one looks okay too. I mean, it doesn't really matter how the background looks, but I think in general that type, he labels it as Type 2. Trip World looked really neat in this, I thought, even though it's impossible to play at super speed. So look at this. I mean, isn't that hype? That's so cool. Um, I think I'm gonna die on spikes here immediately, but this is 1-bit color. So just so you might not know, Game Boy is 2-bit colors. It has 4 shades. It's not black and white. It's 4 shades of gray. So this 1-bit sharp memory LCD screen has only black and white. It only has on and off. So let's see. I'll show one more game. God. So let's look at something Tetris Flash, maybe Tetris 2. I don't know why I like this game. I just think it's neat. It's kind of like Dr. Mario mashed up with Tetris. So this works perfectly. Nice, nice with the colors. Utama does not work that nicely because it's so hard to get into the game because of the super speed. But you'll see, the pieces just don't. They're not distinct. This is a Game Boy Color game that just happens to have Game Boy Mono support, but it's okay if I can't play. And also, that's a 1 megabyte game. I'm not gonna. I don't feel like messing with all these. I'm cutting down that Panel de Pon game because I really like it, and it deserves to be kind of set free. So this Bombliss is a cool game, but it's another example of washed out. It's like not that good in 1-bit. Kirby Star Stacker also did not look that good in 1-bit. Let's see if we can get into the game. See, it's just like a little bit washed out. It's not that awesome. So okay, I'll show one more. Lolo looks amazing in 1-bit. I don't know why. Come on. Oh, I wanted to go into the. I wanted to go. There's like this. Maybe I pressed the wrong button. I'm just jamming on the keys. Yeah. Look at look at this. It gets even better. Just wait. Look at this. I mean, to me, in our grand finale. I don't know. Anyway, so I think that's most of the video. Like, what else is there to show, really? This emulator is really nice. It's really handy for doing, this kind of work. Oops, we're still recording. Maybe I'll try to show breakpoint on. See, this green shows that it's being accessed in bank 32. Let's try it instead of bank 32. Let's look at this tiny sliver. It's in bank 1A. Select in debugger. So, if we look at ROM 1A, okay, ROM 1A looks like both code and data, and I guess this code must be being accessed at some point because here's code that's definitely being accessed. So when you see these little tables, I think oftentimes it's relating to, not often, but sometimes. So we've put breakpoints and watch points on bank 1A, and let's see when they get triggered. If they, they're gonna reset. Please reset. This emulator is chugging. Okay, so we broke at Six. Maybe I can stop recording and then trace logger. It's not tracing. I don't know. PS aux grep emulicious. Top minus P 148 146. I'm just wondering. It's the new zero. Oh, because it's paused. I don't know. Whatever. So we're currently in bank 1A. A lot of the time, at least if it's early on in accessing that bank, you look at the registers and you'll see 1A in there. But I don't see. Oh, I know what I was going to show. So build.sh. So we can build it and then everything works fine. And now if I go into my load a 32, so if I do a replace and change, I think I copied it into bank 8. I'm pretty sure. Let me see. Bank 8. Previously I had. That's annoying. Alright, well, whatever. Yeah, okay, it'll still work for what I want to show. Replace. What did I just do? What's going on here? Oh, yeah, I do want that. Oh boy. Replace. So we're going to replace this with 08. Replace all. And then I'm going to save it and build it. And now the graphics should be all messed up in the game. This will be fine. See that? So, and like everything works properly. So just by some miracle, like all those load A with 32 would, like, it doesn't affect any game code. I mean, this is a relatively small game at this point. So I didn't replace the data in bank 8. So bank 8 is all FF. So it's just loading FF for all the graphics. But you understand, like, what's going on. So let's see. Now I'm going to undo that because I don't want this change. Save, close, build. So you can see now we're back to normal. But it's not so simple as just copy all of bank 32 into bank 8 and then make those replacements, because the access of bank 32 is not only from this code but from like load A 30 and then increment, and then I think, it's just going to take a little time. So I've just been kind of procrastinating and, like I said, working on different areas of the coverage. Like I moved 24 and 23 into whatever it was, and I'll like, this is low-hanging fruit. Maybe this one, bank B I might have already, I think is actually 23 or 24, but because once I eventually get all this over, then it's going to start going back to stuff that I already hacked. But I have notes. Like this 1A might be a pretty simple move over. And one interesting thing is, if you look at this coverage, and then there'll be some banks that aren't used, and then you'll play music, and then it'll start filling in. I thought that was neat. But anyway, I hope this video was informative and interesting, and be on the lookout for my completely worthless reduced size Panel de Pon Gameboy hack. And thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.